Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. A quick update from Monday on the news that SpaceX was going to exclude Robinhood and SoFi from getting IPO shares. Elon said those reports are false. Of course, it makes sense for SpaceX to distribute shares as broadly as possible, but look, it's not going to be a problem to generate demand for this IPO. And today we learned that officially SpaceX has filed, but confidentially, for its IPO. So right now, the SEC has all of the financial information about SpaceX. However, for us, we will not get that for another few weeks. So for now, all of that financial information stays confidential to give the SEC time to review it, but this will probably be the most anticipated S1 release ever. And based on how things are going, that S1 might become public sometime toward the end of May or early June. Then SpaceX executives will do the roadshow deal and pitch SpaceX to investors, and we should have that IPO sometime in June or July. Don't forget, we should get Tesla's Q1 P&D report tomorrow morning, Thursday morning. Troy Teslike is at 375,000. Once again, the company compiled consensus was just over 365,600. And as we covered, the Q1 comp from last year is not a good one because Tesla was switching over to the new Model Y. For me, wake me up when they put Robotaxi data in the P&D report. And FYI, I will bring back the 70-30 split for these recordings by the next video. Data from CommBank out of Australia said that since March 1st, new loans for BEVs were up 161% compared to the weekly average volume in February. And EV purchase inquiries were up 136% in March. Interest in EV finance options was also spiking, with average daily visits to its EV car loan product page up 75% in March compared to February. The surge in EV interest is not limited to households, but EVs are also proving popular with Australian businesses. Business loan applications for Teslas alone are up 268% to date in March. That compared to the same time last year. And the Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries said that BEVs alone accounted for 8.3% of total Australian vehicle sales across 2025. Then if you throw hybrids into the mix, the number jumps to 13%, which was up from 9.6% in 2024. And a fun fact for Tesla sales in Norway, they had around a 41% market share back in 2023, but fast forward to March of this year and Tesla still has 35% of all new passenger cars. And year to date, Tesla's market share is 27% in Norway.
We're going to want every terrific licensed robot driver on the platform as well. And we'll be in 15 cities by the end of the year with our partners. And by 2029, we think that we will facilitate more autonomous and robotaxi rides than anyone else in the world.
Mason, do you ever think Elon would come on platform, or is he just, I'm doing it all on my own? He doesn't play well with others usually.
You know, I think Elon's approach typically has been a vertical approach, right? Yeah. They even own their own refinery. Again, when the day comes when those Teslas are safe with a camera-only approach, we'd love to have those Teslas on our platform as well. We've got tens of thousands of Teslas on our platform now, and some of our drivers use FSD.
Sure.
So we've got a lot of data. It's a great car. It's a safe car. We'd love to work with them. As to whether we will or will not is TBD, but there are plenty of other partners in the space. And we think there are going to be many, many winners.
Number one, that prediction has been added to the tracker. And number two, it's just fascinating how pretty much everybody outside of the Tesla bubble thinks that there will be many winners in this autonomous space, and that sometime soon all of these other companies are just going to have this generalized autonomous approach. Outside of Tesla, I can tell you with certainty it will not be generalized. The best case scenario would be other companies treating it like Waymo, and even how Tesla's been doing it so far. But as we've been saying for years, once we look at Austin and all of those vehicles are unsupervised, that same technology, you can drag and drop it anywhere in the United States. Now, yes, we have to account for snow and odd intersections city to city, so there will be a few weeks or months where Tesla will need to validate these new locations. But at that point, it really is a solved problem. It's just a matter of the operations and the infrastructure being able to keep up. Naturally, Elon chose to say this on April 1st. FSD 14.3 is in Tesla employee beta right now and will probably go to wide release by the end of the week. I would have been skeptical to some degree because of April Fools, but the real reason is because going from employees only to wide release in a few days just seems far too quick. We've seen time and time again, it goes from employees to the early access group. They have it for a week on their own. Then there's usually a point release before it starts going wider after that. And given that the early access group, the Olmars, the Chucks, the AI drivers, dirty Teslas, and so on, they don't even have it yet. And from that time, we might have 1 to 3 weeks before it actually goes to a wide release. You know, to us normal folk. All that to say, I am not holding my breath to see 14.3 on my phone by this Sunday. But if the EA group does get it in the next few days and we start getting videos, then I'm certainly excited for that. Rest assured, I've heard all of the feedback, so going forward, I'm going to get right into the sponsored segments, and today's video is sponsored by Fantic. Here we have the brand new X10 Pro Max portable tire inflator. And now check this out, with the X10 Pro, it took roughly 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go from 0 PSI to 40 PSI. But with the new X10 Pro Max, it went from 0 to 40 in 1 minute and 17 seconds. So more than twice as fast as the X10 Pro. And can refill 10 tires on one single charge. And to turn it on, you can just pull out the hose. And to turn it off, you just plug it back in. And then on the right hand side, you can press this yellow button when the hose is connected to the tire to deflate your tires to whatever PSI you want. And on the bottom, it has built-in storage for a pin for balls and some other adapters. The light on this new version is much more powerful, and now it has a new setting to flash red. Here we have the Fantic P10 Pro portable car polisher, which I'll be honest, as of late, I've actually been using this to clean my countertops. The P10 Pro polisher has a low speed design, and we know historically Tesla has had some soft paint, so this low speed setting will be ideal for use with Teslas. The P10 weighs 1/2 pound, it's cordless, it runs up to 50 minutes on one charge, and is designed for areas that full-size polishers can't really reach, so side mirrors, door handles, badges, tight curves around the front end, etc. And hopefully, as you saw, it comes with this full kit of accessories. So if you'd like to support the work I do here and add some of these tools to your arsenal, all of the links and the codes for everything will be in the description below. Ethan McConnell said Tesla's unsupervised is finally scaling in Austin. At least a couple vehicles running simultaneously, the service area is significantly expanded, and availability has been improving. Still looking to see if we see rides at night or during non-optimal conditions, and if the active number of unsupervised vehicles continues to increase. And we now have multiple reports that the unsupervised geofence is now expanded. And Jesse Richards did some testing for us and came up with this updated map for the unsupervised geofence. The green portion is the new expansion. And perhaps most importantly, this does now cover downtown Austin, which is dense traffic, a lot of pedestrians, and arguably the most challenging driving. So if Tesla can handle this area in an unsupervised manner, then really covering the rest of this should not be that difficult. So I'm not saying the rest will be easy, as there will be highway construction and poor markings in the suburbs and train tracks, etc. But covering downtown Austin feels like a very important step, signifying that Tesla's finally starting to develop more confidence with unsupervised. And just eyeballing it, that geofence has more than doubled. If you're wondering how Jesse got that updated geofence, he was just moving the pin around the map to ultimately see where the vehicle would not go. David Moss shared this brief clip of an unsupervised Robotaxi ride in Austin handling this construction and the signage, no problem. But that was just a segue to what David said here. They're 4 for 4 on unsupervised rides in the expanded Tesla geofence. No wait times or high service demand alerts. They got 4 rides within 2 hours. And I know that right now some of you out there are rolling your eyes saying that we're blowing everything out of proportion, and I really do understand that sentiment. But let's have some perspective here. This post from David was just over 30 days ago, where he took 40 40 Tesla Robotaxi rides and got 0 unsupervised. There's your proof, January 27th this year. So listen guys, I know that we are still in the slowly at first phase with all of this. But personally, I have decided I'm not going to let my impatience stop me from enjoying this season and each little milestone, no matter how small, because one day I'll be able to look back and recall how many people were writing Tesla off because the rollout was a bit slower than many of us expected. Remember that AV hearing that we covered a few weeks ago? Well, there was a comment period after it, and Senator Markey ended up following up with some of these companies to ask a specific set of questions. Tesla was one of the last companies to submit its response, but Senator Markey just made it public. If you'd like to read the full document, I will have it linked below. But this response from Tesla has many in the industry up in arms. Tesla said its vehicles are not remotely driven under normal operations. As a redundancy measure in rare cases, RAOs, which are remote assistance operators, are authorized to temporarily assume direct vehicle control as the final escalation maneuver after all other available intervention actions have been exhausted. This direct input by the remote supervisors is the last resort and is always limited in scope and duration. RAOs can only take temporary control of the vehicle at under 2 miles per hour, and if direct access is granted by the Tesla ADS, aka the autonomous driving system, the enforced maximum speed authority is 10 miles per hour. This ability allows Tesla to promptly move a vehicle that may be in a compromising position, thereby mitigating the need to wait for a first responder or a Tesla field representative to manually recover the vehicle. Now you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal? Isn't it a good thing that Tesla has this ability to move the vehicle if need be? Well, you would think so. The problem is every other company that responded to these questions is saying that they do not take direct control of the vehicles ever. Now, to be technical, there are some very minor exceptions for some of these other companies, but generally speaking, Tesla is the only company that has come out and said it takes direct control like this. And so now what we have here is regulators and senators and people like Missy Cummings saying, see, I told you so. Teslas really aren't autonomous because they have remote assistance operators that are really controlling the vehicle, and because Tesla is not saying how often they take over or how often they take direct control, some of these skeptics are trying to paint a picture like Tesla is not sharing because they're taking over more than they want people to believe. Tesla did say its RAOs are only in Austin and or Palo Alto. Those in Palo Alto are charged with providing an added layer of redundancy to the Austin service. So unlike Waymo, they do not have any remote operators in the Philippines. So yes, all of Tesla's remote assistance operators are located in the US. But let me be clear, all companies refused to say how often the remote operators were actually engaged. And because of this, Senator Markey said in his report, it's revealed a stunning lack of transparency from the AV companies around their use of remote assistance operators to help guide their AVs. The investigation exposed a patchwork of safety practices across the industry with significant variation in operator qualifications, response times, and overseas staffing, all without any federal standards governing these operations. And he just said he's now calling on NHTSA to investigate these companies' use of remote workers, and that he's working on legislation to impose strict guardrails on AV companies' use of remote operators. And for now, all of these companies were using the excuse, well, we can't share that information because it'll give away trade secrets. I do find it so odd that they're trying to argue like Tesla having the ability to move the vehicles remotely is a liability, when in reality, some of these other companies don't even have the option to do that, meaning if their vehicles get stuck, they have to send somebody manually to move it, if of course they can't troubleshoot in some other way. And to think that some of these senators or regulators actually believe Tesla has operators secretly driving these Tesla vehicles behind the scenes in any capacity more than the most extreme rare cases is crazy to me. But right now, that's the argument some of them are trying to make. And the reason all of this matters so much is because we're squarely in the middle of that federal framework for AVs being debated on and figured out. And this story that does not get reported on very widely just happened over 30 days ago in Austin with Waymo. The Waymo vehicle stopped behind a school bus that had the flashing lights on and the stop sign. And it was actively loading students, and the car stopped properly, but then human drivers started going around the school bus. And so the Waymo driver started to get confused, so it pinged the remote assistance for guidance. And the remote operator actually said, no, that is not a school bus with the stop sign and the flashing lights up. It gave wrong information. But the Waymo driver took that input and then did decide to go around the school bus illegally based on that input. And that created a whole can of worms for Waymo because they have said emphatically all along that the remote operators, any input they give, the Waymo driver ultimately decides what to do. Meaning, even if the remote operator gives bad intel, the Waymo driver will be able to understand that and still react appropriately. But in this case, that's not what happened. And as we've said before, that Waymo problem with the school bus was not a one-off. There have been over 20 documented instances where Waymos have struggled with school buses. But at the end of the day, I do believe that cooler heads will prevail and the regulators and senators will come to understand that Tesla having the ability to take direct control is actually an advantage, not a disadvantage. And further, even if we don't get the information about how often Tesla's remote operators are taking control, hopefully they can give the regulators whatever information they need to actually realize and see that they're not just busy driving the vehicles a majority of the time. And again, I'll have the full response from Tesla's Karen Stakely linked below. I really wish this one was an April Fool's joke, but Elon said custom orders of the Model S and X have come to an end. All that's left are some in inventory. We will have an official ceremony to mark the ending of an era. I love those cars. He shared a picture and said, "This was me at production launch 14 years ago." For me, I will never forget where my Tesla fandom actually started. It was back in 2012. I was at my cousin's house and their neighbor had a new Model S and they let us jump in the back seat and I got to see that vertical screen for the first time. And I thought a screen that big in an electric car was like the coolest thing ever, being a big tech fan. And as I've said before, from that day on, I became a big Tesla fan, creating custom merch for myself that I would wear to poker games, to spark conversations, and so on. And selfishly, it's quite disappointing because I've always wanted to own a Model S Plaid one day in the future, but it looks like that won't really be an option. And yes, guys, I know there's a used market, but for any new Tesla purchase that I will make, I'm going to ensure it has the latest hardware. So to everybody that had a hand in the success of the Model S and X, your contributions will not soon be forgotten. It's a fact, those cars are the reason Tesla exists as a company today. As Sawyer said, Tesla has officially discontinued free FSD transfers in North America, which marks the first time in roughly a year that Tesla will not be offering free FSD transfers in North America. Elon just said Optimus 3 is walking around but needs some finishing touches before it's ready to be shown. So I won't overreact here, but there's just something about the sentiment of this comment paired with what we've heard elsewhere about the V3 program and the fact that we haven't seen much of anything from Tesla with regard to demos has me lowering my expectations at least a bit for what we're going to see at the demo, and I won't be surprised if that event does not happen in April. The Nasdaq has officially concluded its consultation period regarding some proposed changes for this year. By far, the biggest change that will be implemented as of May 1st this year is large companies can now be added to the Nasdaq 100 15 days after IPO instead of having to wait a few months like they did before. So what does that mean? Well, typically at the IPO, you have a spike of buying and demand and interest, and then the companies would fizzle out and settle in, and then they'd be added to the index where all of that passive forced buying happens. Now we're going to have all of that forced buying from the passive funds a little over 2 weeks after the IPO, meaning the buy side demand for that SpaceX IPO for the first 30 days after the fact is going to be significant. In short, there's likely to be some fireworks for the first few weeks after the SpaceX IPO. If you've been wondering why Elon has been so obsessed with Grok Imagine, we finally got an answer. He said the future of AI is primarily video understanding and generation because photons are by far the highest bandwidth form of communication. These are essential tools for AGI. It's worth mentioning that Imagine is positive gross margin for XAI, not a money loser. The easiest way to think about this, you know the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words? Well, along those lines, a video might be worth 100,000 words. So the AI companies that can not only generate video, but have its models understand it are going to be the ones that have the best shot at true AGI, because it'll give them the best ability to truly understand the world as it is. And I think it should be pretty intuitive. I can explain with words the process of changing a tire, but if I just set up a camera and record it, well, that's going to do a much better job of explaining to somebody how to actually do it. And we're not there yet, but from a consumer perspective, let's say we get to the point where I can record a video of myself with my pickleball drive and I can say, hey Grok, help me to fix this and to get more topspin. But by far, I think the most obvious application would be for Optimus. If it can see the world through video and actually understand what it's seeing, well then that's going to be a huge breakthrough. So if you're still thinking Grok Imagine is just a tool for creators, then you definitely need to think again. Joe Tetmeyer said, it looks like despite the production pause at Giga Texas this week and most of next week for Model Y line upgrades, maintenance and more, Cybertruck production is actually picking up a good deal, in fact. And we know Tesla should have plenty of standard all-wheel drive Cybertrucks to deliver.
We really want to bet on all of it. We're going to have an all hybrid lineup. So Bronco, everything you can buy at Ford will have a hybrid. We'll also have EREVs for towing. We'll have an all electric affordable vehicle to compete with Model Y and Model 3. I think there's really nothing else like it on the market for these new vehicles coming out from Ford. We really started a Skunk Works team in California 4 years ago. They were basically Formula One and Tesla people. You know, my badge didn't even work in the building. And that vehicle is radically different.
Oh, cool.
Engineering. I'm really excited to show everyone, you know, later this year, maybe next year, and it'll be coming out next year. So yeah, that's how I see it. Look, the world is really different. 60% of all pure electric vehicles sold in the world are produced and bought in one country, China. They are way ahead. They use a totally different battery technology, LFP. No fire risk, twice the charge life, but about 30% less energy density than a lithium battery, but very affordable.
So right there, did he misspeak, or is he exposing himself as not knowing that LFP is also a lithium battery?
Europe is somewhere in between us here in the US, where we're only 5% electric, pure electric. We used to be almost 15, but the consumer incentives went away and we found out what the natural market is. It's only about 5% of the US market, but that's still a huge market. Mm-hmm. In Europe, it's about 25%. And in China and Europe, they're hugely supported by the governments with consumer incentives, much larger than the ones we had here in the US. And that helps people make that expensive bridge because the batteries are very expensive. I think, you know, we're in the third inning because the battery costs have not come down where we thought. We thought they'd be, you know, maybe a third less than they are. Ford's making an LFP battery for our new UEV affordable product in Michigan, and we'll be starting our production for our affordable EV whole lineup starting next year at a time when pretty much all of our competitors, including Tesla, are basically stopped investing. So we're really excited about our journey.
I'm sorry, excuse me, what did he just say? all of our competitors, including Tesla, have basically stopped investing. I'm not sure what type of substances Farley is on, but in no world is that accurate about Tesla, whether talking about LFP or really anything else. Tesla's capex this year set to be $20 billion without the terafab, without solar expansion, and Tesla's currently in the midst of building out a brand new factory for LFP production. Maybe he misspoke, but if not, Jim, let's not put that type of disinformation out there. Tesla stock closed the day at $381.26, up 2.56%, while the NDX was up 1.18%. The volume was 3% below the average. Don't forget, if interested, check out those new Fantic products with my codes all in the description below, and as always, thank you in advance. Hope you have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.